Alright, so here I am with a short project here. I'm going to be checking out this 75 grain bullet from Midway USA. This is a seconds bullet, factory seconds. And I got these for 13 cents per bullet, which is probably the cheapest I've ever bought a 75 grain bullet for 5.56. Anyways, this is a discontinued bullet. And well, let me just show you this first. This is the brass I'm using. This is Starline brass, same as the 300 hammer, same brand. And on here, I don't mark virgin or factory brass, and then I mark it once per reload thereafter. So this has been shot 3 times, and is going to be on its 4th, but the brass still looks good. I'm just getting ready to trim and prep it. But here is the bullet that I'm talking about. This is a Hornady 75 grain interlock that they apparently don't make anymore, that was really designed for law enforcement and really short barrels. And so they're discontinued now, and I guess you can only get them either some leftover boxes of the made stuff or through these seconds, this factory seconds. And as you can see, it's going incredibly slow out of a 20-inch barrel. Okay, so quick correction here. I'm using the data from Midway USA's website because that's where I bought the bullets from, but as it turns out, Hornady does have a page for the Interlock SBR Hornady Black. And as it turns out, this data is from an 11.5-inch barrel. These were made for probably 10.5-inch ARs. And the BC is also really low because anyone who used this was expecting to shoot it from really close range. And so I was wondering what I should actually load it with, since this bullet is going to expand at really low velocities. And you can see it has 2 cannulars, which is really interesting. I've never seen a bullet like that. The point of the cannular, well, it's not just to, crimp on the bullet. It also helps keep the structure as it expands and mushrooms out. That's what all of the interlocks advertise on Hornady's website. And yeah, this one does not have a page on Hornady's website. I had to get all this information from, it's not speculation, but people did say it was this kind of bullet, and I read about what people were saying about this bullet. So that's all I really know about it. And it has 2 cannulars, which, like I said, never seen before, so I guess it should really hold up its shape. It has a little indent here. Not an indent, but like a ridge line at the base. And other than that, I guess I'll load it to the second cannular, the top one. That's probably what everybody else is doing. When I look at the factory the factory ammo, it's loaded to the second cannular, but probably I could load it to the other one if I was loading for a bolt action, but it's going to be for an AR too. I'll get all the information about my AR as well. And this is what the packaging looks like. It's just a white box with all 100 in there with no bag or anything like that, just in the box. So, since the bullet was originally designed for such slow velocities, I decided to go with a relatively fast burning powder, such as Ramshot X-terminator, which I believe is right next to H335 in terms of its burn rate. And so I've actually loaded one like this, the 75 grain Bowtail Hollow Point Match, which is still in production and a little bit longer than the Interlock. And so 2680 out of my 18-inch barrel, I don't have a 16, is the number that I want to get more or less when I load this one. So the overall length will be different, the load will be different, the bullet will interact differently with the powder, and so I won't exceed this. And because of that, I think if you were to shoot this out of a 16-inch barrel, you would probably get around 2620 feet per second, maybe. So I just want to test out this bullet to see how good it actually is at 13 cents a round. But if not the velocity, if the accuracy isn't there, then I probably won't get any more. As it turns out, the YouTuber Tools and Targets actually tested this bullet with a 16-inch barrel and was averaging 2513. So out of my 18-inch, I'll probably gain 50 or 60 FPS out of it. And so if I can get to a little bit over 2600, I'll be happy with that. After this, he actually tests how well the bullet does in ballistic gel. So if you want to see that, this is a good video. Just want to show what the bullets look like up close. There is going to be some variation in length because they have lead tips. They don't have very much lead exposed compared to other bullets, but there definitely is about a 0.005 difference between the shortest and longest that I've seen. But overall, they're pretty good for what they are. So I went ahead and loaded 4 loads for this test, from 22.6 grains to 23.2 grains of Ramshot X-terminator. This is actually the max that I got for the 75 grain Hornady Bowtail Hollow Point, which is a little bit longer, so this should be really safe. This should actually get lower velocities. For the overall length, I ended up with 2.223 inches. I was just loading at the cannular at first, but then I realized that I was approaching the base to ogive length for the cartridge. That was the same as the base to ogive of that other 75 grain bullet, the Bowtail hollow point. So I loaded it just a little bit deeper to get it to that base to ogive, and that's what I ended up with. Additionally, I actually measured the bullets. I wasn't too precise about it, but I was trying to make sure that the middle length bullet stayed with the middle lengths, the longest with the longest, and the shortest with the shortest, so there wasn't too much commingling and differences in overall length. So there probably is going to be a little bit extra work when using these bullets just because of the high variation. I don't know if that's just the result of these bullets being seconds, or if that's just a natural downside of these particular types of bullets even when they were factory new, so I'm not sure about that. I'll be using this rifle that I built. It uses a Ballistic Advantage 18-inch SPR barrel in 5.56 and not in 223 Wild. Most things here are mil-spec, so, the upper is Arrow, the lower is Anderson. The scope is a Vortex 4-16 by 42 millimeter Diamondback, second focal plane. And the trigger is a LaRue MBT trigger, so that's nice. And I'm also using a Caldwell XLA bipod for something that isn't too demanding. It's actually been holding up really well. So most things on this rifle are pretty budget, but it shoots pretty good usually. On a side note, I did say in the last video I wouldn't use the 2-inch targets anymore. That was a lie. I'm going to use them. When I shot these groups with this particular scope, the 1-inch groups are just impossible to see. The crosshair is actually just thicker than the other one and would just cover it to a point where I wasn't shooting blind, but it was taking a lot more effort than it would normally. These are the groups I ended up getting. As you can see, I experienced a failure to feed during my first group that compromised the bullet, and I still shot it, but it ended up going awry and to the far left. It took a 1-inch group to a 2-inch group, which is unfortunate. That group was going 2503 feet per second, so this is actually slower than I thought it would go at this point. During the next group, that one was actually going 2547. It actually shocked me just how much of an increase that 0.2 grains of extra powder ended up making in this particular jump. Anyways, it was a 1.70 inch group, and now I was starting to lose a bit of hope. I thought maybe the last group was a fluke that 4 of them were grouping so well, and maybe they made that last bullet was always destined to go really far to the left. But going into the third group at 23.0 grains, I ended up with a 0.721 group at 2568 feet per second. So that's a more modest increase in velocity given the 0.2 jump in powder. But the group size itself is really incredible, especially when you compare it to the next group. It got a 1.173 inch group, but as you can see, only one of these bullets was really far off. I'm sure if I tightened up the bullet construction and maybe I measured the bullets so that the lengths were less varied per group, I could maybe tighten this up to a 1 MOA group. So seeing as this is still a 13-cent seconds bullet, being able to get a 1 MOA or even sub MOA load out of this would be incredible. The final velocity for this one was a 2614 feet per second, which again was a bigger jump once more. And I should also say that despite this being the max of the previous bullet I loaded at this exact grain weight by Hornady, it's actually quite a bit slower. There may be more room for me to load this a little bit hotter, or maybe just change the seating depth to see if that makes it more accurate. This definitely has a lot of potential given what it is, so I'll definitely be returning to this one. I already have all the components ready, and I don't have the components ready for 300 hammer, so I probably will return to some 5.56 load before the next 300 hammer video comes out. So until then, that's it.